you'll be very aware that the Royal Society is extremely committed to promoting increasing diversity in STEM. Because we are very aware again that having a more inclusive workforce will help to maximize innovation and creativity, which is for the benefit of all humanity. So the work on diversity in science includes addressing barriers to participation and success in, and actions to support and inspire change. I'm introducing the winner of the Athena Prize, and this is the first year that the Athena Prize is being awarded. It was established in 2016 and was provided by a gift to the Society, and it's going to be awarded biennially in even years to individuals or teams working in the UK academic and research communities who have contributed in fantastic ways to the advancement of diversity in their area of interest. So the recipients receive a medal and also a gift of £5,000 for their future work, for example. The next round of applications, and you should note this because I'm sure there are many of you there who could be contributing, will open on the 30th of November this year. So the winner of the first Athena Prize are the people, the Women in Mathematics Committee of the London Mathematical Society. And they are represented here by Eugenie Hanska. And the award was given because of the wonderful work that women in the Mathematics Committee have done to improve representation in mathematics, which, as we have been hearing throughout the day, is one of the areas where it's really difficult to get girls to participate, and that we have to be working very hard at it from an early stage, including schoolgirls and even younger. The Women in Mathematics and Girls in Mathematics Committee sponsors days of women in mathematics, including schoolgirls. And I think we'll be hearing from Eugenie about the way in which they've been establishing this really fantastic program of improving representation of women in mathematics. Eugenie herself has been working in diversity in STEM since her undergraduate days, and she's now a senior lecturer in mathematics at the University of Loughborough. Eugenie.
Thank you very much. I was just looking through my slides on the just before now and realized that I'd put the wrong years on. I put on 2017 instead of 2016 and 2018 instead of 2017. And I was thinking, those people who think that either you've got maths or have not got maths, let me tell you, we all struggle. Anyway. So it's been a really fantastic honor to have been recognized at the LMS Women in Mathematics Committee for our work. And through the year, as I've gotten to know more about what's been going on in a variety of other groups and societies, I'm really it's really inspiring to see all of the various different amazing things that are going on. And so I can tell that this is going to be a hotly contested prize going forward because there are so many really deserving individuals and groups out there. So anyway, I thought I'd start out by talking about who we are. So this is a photo of us with the medal. It's a lovely medal from last year at this conference. And on the far left is Kathy Hobbs, who is the head of engineering mathematics at the University of West of England and has been a really staunch women in mathematics supporter throughout her career, and was one of the people who was involved in the founding of the committee in 1999 and was the first chair of the committee. Next to her is Gwyneth Stallard from the Open University, professor of mathematics at the Open University, who prior to my taking over as the chair of the committee was the chair for 9 years and did a lot of really phenomenal work. And it was some very difficult role to step into following that example. So I'm in the middle, of course. I've been the chair of the committee for 2 years now, and it's really been given a boost by getting the prize. We've got lots of new, exciting ideas. Next to me on the other side is Katie Henderson, who works for the LMS and is basically my memory and my brain most of the time, and without whom nothing would get done. So she's been really phenomenal. And then John Greene is at the far end. He's vice president of the LMS and has been sitting on the committee for a very long time. He's the co-chair with me for a while, and has been really instrumental in ensuring that that the activities of the Women in Mathematics Committee are brought up to the group that decides funding in particular at the Society. And he's been a very staunch supporter, and he's just a lovely individual. And so I do want to put out props very much to the men of the London Mathematical Society, who have also been hugely supportive of the work that we're doing on diversity. Okay, so in terms of what do we do, there's sort of 3 basic areas in which we direct our efforts. The first is celebration, the second is support, and the third is advocacy. So I'll just sort of run through some of the things we do. So in terms of celebration, this is about sort of, I think, in terms of sort of role model and community building. So we have a lecture every year, the annual Mary Cartwright Lecture, that's given by an eminent woman mathematician. This is Rebecca Hoyle, who gave the talk last year. So that's a really nice event that celebrates particularly a star within mathematics. We also have prizes, particularly, they're not just for women, but they're particularly aimed at individuals who, aside from their work within mathematics, have also been particularly instrumental in advancing the interests of women in mathematics. And so these are some of our recent prize winners. I'll note that Caroline Series, who's in the upper left-hand corner here, has just been elected as the new president of the London Mathematical Society, and she's actually the 3rd woman president of the society. So it's really fantastic to have that continuity there. Mentioned already that we have Women in Mathematics Days. Now, we used to organize these ourselves in the committee, but it occurred to us a couple of years ago that there was a lot of, that when we thought about things to do, we tended in the committee to think about the same things and the same people, and so we made the decision to open these out. So now these are funded by the LMS and organized by people around the country who apply to run one of these. And there was a particularly really phenomenal day last year at Birkbeck. And this is some photos from that. It was jointly sponsored with, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the joint sponsor. I apologize to the joint sponsor. I might come back to it. But so one of the things in particular that we thought about in terms of these days is to ensure diversity in those days. So I mean, of course, they're aimed at celebrating women in mathematics. They're open to all participants, although they're really featuring speakers and who are women, and there's a poster session and that sort of thing. So giving young women an opportunity to get out there with their research, but also trying to make sure that we have them at a diversity of institutions and at a diversity of locations. So it was really fantastic. Winston Capital was the co-sponsor. It was particularly nice, to be able to run one at Birkbeck, which is, as you might know, it's not a traditional university, and so opening up this as a celebration of women in mathematics to a much broader community than we might get celebrating at Oxford or Cambridge, for instance, although we've also had fantastic events both at Oxford and Cambridge. In addition, we sponsor two or three, well, last year it was 3, this year it's 2 Girls in Mathematics Days. And again, these are organized people around the country. And they always, it's amazing how many fantastic ideas they have about activities. And so it's a great pleasure to be able to get involved with that as well. This is a new project that we've just started on, and that actually the prize money is going to be used for a launch party for this project. And I think this is related in many ways to some of the things that came up this morning about the idea of success and the idea of what does it take to succeed in mathematics. And one of my favorite statistics, and I haven't actually had to do any research to say with absolute certainty that this statistic is correct, is that 99% of mathematicians are not in the top 1%. Right? So, I mean, quite often, when we think about role models that we put up for people, we're putting up people who are in that very elite top 1%. And something that's been very influential for me was the work of the WISE campaign and their People Like Me report, which showed that girls quite often struggle to see themselves in these roles. And so I thought it was very important for us to start celebrating a much broader meaning of success and a much wider set of successful people. And the other thing that I'm going to give you some more one-liners, just to liven it up, which is that. Well, one thing that, we often think about success in terms of staying within an academic career. And so something we've particularly tried to highlight is people who have gone outside academic careers and to make people feel, yes, this is also a success. And the 2 quotes about this that I've heard, one was somebody saying, I hate it when they talk about pipelines, leaky pipelines, because it makes me feel like a drip. And I think... And the other quote from the other side is somebody who said, one person's leaky pipeline is another person's irrigation system. And when we think about the number of people that we educate in mathematics and science, it's completely ridiculous to imagine that the aim of that education should be academic success and an academic career. But I think often women and girls get the impression that that's what it is. And so we've really tried to counteract that with these stories. And the other thing I think about is when a lot of the people who go into mathematics, the students who come into mathematics, they're thinking about a career in accountancy or actuarial science or something like that. And when you think about, I'm going to become an accountant, nobody thinks in order to succeed as an accountant, I need to win one of the top world prizes in accountancy. Nobody thinks that way, right? And so it's much easier to imagine yourself as a successful accountant because you don't have this unrealistic vision of what it is to be a successful accountant. So again, these are some of the things behind the success stories of trying to really give people a much broader sense of what it is to be successful in a career in science and make people feel that this is a career that people like them go into and in which people like them are successful. Okay, we also have a couple of forms of support. In particular, we have a set of fellowships that we give out called the Grace Chisholm Young Fellowships. These are actually quite small in terms of monetary, but these are for individuals who, due to family or personal circumstances, have had to have a gap in their formal employment. And what it does is it gives them an association, an affiliation with universities. So they'll have an email account at a university, they'll have access to the resources at the university, they'll have a mentor at the university, they'll have some travel funding. And even though it's been quite small, in fact, we've had a remarkable success, and that all of the people who have come through this have ended up getting into permanent jobs in mathematics, and many of them in academic mathematics, but all of them successfully carrying on in mathematical careers. So it's been quite a good program. Another thing that we've done that's become, I think, quite widespread, in fact, are caring supplementary grants. These used to be called child care supplementary grants, but we also realized that caring responsibilities are of a very wide sort. It may be child care, but it may be care for an ailing parent or a partner. And so these are particularly aimed to permit individuals who have caring responsibilities to get financial assistance with those caring responsibilities when they want to go travel for conferences, for instance, or when they have a research visitor and they need additional help. And again, these are open for everybody, men and women, and quite often, in fact, when men apply, it's because both they and their partners are going off to a conference, and somebody's got to look after the kids somehow. So, we're quite enthusiastic about having men apply to be the ones who are going to bring the kids with them on their conference. It's healthy in a number of ways. Okay, then there are, as I said, also advocacy work we're involved in. So in 2013, we released a report, Advancing Women in Mathematics, Good Practice in UK University Departments, that was based on a survey of mathematics departments about the practice in their department, but also about statistics on their populations. We're now updating this with a new report that we've just commissioned. We've just finished collecting the volunteers for, and this is going to be based on an analysis of Athena Swan submissions from mathematics departments to draw out aspects of good practice to share in the community. So I'm really looking forward to having the results of that new report and to see what new ideas have come out since this report. We also have a set of workshops, good practice scheme and workshops. So the good practice scheme is a scheme for departments that are working on improving their practice, and there's a variety of help and information available for them, but there are also workshops that we run. And we've run some workshops recently, for instance, on good practice in recruitment. And I've recently heard some interesting things about recruitment that I'm going to fold into my next workshop on that topic, which is coming up in Edinburgh in December. Another part of advocacy is just ensuring that the LMS, the London Mathematical Society, adheres to best practice in its own operations. And so we work quite closely with the other committees, with council, to ensure that there's good representation on committees, that grants are awarded in a fair and equitable way, and that we encourage a range of people to apply for those, that people who apply for workshops have a plan for how they're going to get a diverse set of people to come to those workshops. In publications, there's an effort to ensure that editorial boards are balanced and the like. So keeping up just to make sure that we're not telling everybody else what to do without looking at our own housekeeping. There are still a lot of challenges for women in maths that we're sort of taking on in the coming years. One of these is more women prize winners. That despite our best interests or our best efforts in this, there are still a very far minority of women amongst the prize winners at the LMS Awards. And this year we're putting in a real push to try to nominate more, because when I talk to the committee, they say, well, people don't nominate women. And I have a personal theory, unbacked up by any data, but when I think about what people say about women applying for jobs, that they'll only apply if they're sure that they meet 100% of the criteria, whereas men are likely to apply when they only meet 60% or something. I feel that I have that same reaction when I think about nominating somebody for an award, and I feel like I can't nominate someone unless I'm sure that they 100% meet all the criteria. And I think that we have to be careful to make sure that when we're nominating, we're not applying these same sort of unrealistic expectations. So, as I said, completely unsubstantiated, but we're giving it a try. We'll see how it goes. We're also interested in looking at the question of women applying for large grants, and I know I've just actually talked to the Royal Society of Chemistry and the Institute of Physics, whom I know are also working on that very same issue, and so hopefully we'll get some useful collaborations there. And finally, looking at getting women to submit to high-ranking journals, and once again, this is a similar issue. And so these come from a European Commission report on mapping the maze, getting more women to the top, that noticed that part of the obstruction to women getting to the very top ranks of academics is that they don't tend to have as many grants. They don't tend to be leading large grants in the same way, and they don't tend to publish as many papers in high-ranking journals. All right, I'm running out of time, but we're also starting to look at broader diversity issues, whether these are protected characteristics such as ethnic diversity, disability, or LGBT+ issues. but also at issues that aren't protected, such as socioeconomic background, neurodiversity, or geographic area. And the challenges there are a big challenge, especially with a small organization like the LMS, is how do we engage with these without weakening our efforts on women in mathematics? And that's really a challenge, and I think it's a challenge that actually a lot of organizations face, is that you want to increase your efforts. You don't want to broaden them at the cost of losing the track of the things that are still quite relevant. We're also, trying to figure out which areas of diversity are of greatest interest and concern to our community, and what's the right way to support these groups. And so the first steps, again, is the success story, is just trying to highlight diversity within our community, but also just going to our members and saying, what would you like to see us do? What are the things that you're concerned about, and how can we usefully get involved? So thank you very much for listening, and that's right. I wish you all the best in your efforts, right?
I think you've demonstrated beautifully why LMS and the Women in Mathematics Committee won the prize last year, and I'm really congratulate you.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the aspects that I really enjoyed in your talk is the diversity of mathematicians going out to do lots of different things. And I think this is something we should remember in many areas of science, that you don't have to work in the narrow confines of your area of knowledge. You can really take it out there to many different jobs and activities. Thank you. So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Maybe I could ask you, if there's any, because you've been so successful, what would you recommend to people who might be hoping to apply starting this November for the prize? You have to have a prior pedigree, or do you think you can start building up a new program?
I'm sure you can start building up a new program, but I think something that's come out, and this is one of the findings of the Institute of Physics, is that short length interventions are not particularly effective. That anything you do has got to be sustained. So I would say, just make sure that whatever it is, you realize you're in it for the long haul. It's not gonna go away.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I think we all take a lot of lessons home from that. Thank you very much, Greene. And now all it remains for me to do is to ask Frith to give us the final thoughts on the day. Thank you very much.
So we've come to the end of a really amazing day. It's our 5th annual diversity conference here at the Royal Society, and I have to say we had a wonderful start with Sarah Jane Leslie's keynote lecture, and what I really appreciated is that she stayed for the whole day, and she's even agreed to give just a few reflections on the day so that we get an outside view as well, just before I continue with some concluding remarks.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone once again for having me here. It's been a true honor to be part of this event, and I'm not sure why Uda's thanking me for sticking around, because it was 100% my pleasure. So I wanted to thank the Royal Society for putting on this event, thank Uda and the Diversity Committee for including me, and thank the wonderful staff who made this whole day possible. Let's have a round of applause for those who made it. I think that one thing that really made this day special was the fact that it brought together people from diverse industries, that it brought together people who approached the question of diversity in science from multiple angles, brought them together to have a conversation around education and the policies that shape and inform education in a way that was grounded in science, in a way that was driven by empirical data, by what science has to tell us about these important questions of the time. And I really appreciated how in the panels and in the conversations that happened throughout the day, people didn't shy away from asking tough questions, asking difficult questions such as, when do we need to intervene in schools? When do we need to start taking measures with children to ensure that science can be diverse? Do practices in our educational system, such as making students pick their subject areas in their early teens, does that contribute? Is that hand in hand with a lack of diversity in science? Asking questions such as whether our schools are serving children with disabilities in the best way possible, or whether sometimes all too often, due to lack of understanding or lack of resources, those children are not seen as the valuable resources that in fact they are. I think it was fantastic that the Royal Society was willing to put together a conference like this, and I want to challenge the Royal Society to continue to be a leader in this area, to continue to not shy away from these difficult sorts of questions. As an institution with immense privilege, immense status in society, this is a fulcrum for change. This is a kind of institution that can make a real difference. And going forward, to end on a somewhat cautionary note, I think it's also essential that we remember that diversity in science is not something that we talk about at a conference once a year. Diversity in science is something that if we're going to actually affect change, actually make something happen, it needs to be something that we talk about, think about, and live every single day as scientists, as educators, as citizens of this society. So thank you once again for including me in this tremendous event.
Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful. So thank you again, Sarah Jane. I really appreciated your taking the time and giving us your reflections. And I'm sure we will take a lot from your presentation this morning, and really will try and think about these issues more than just once a year. Still, it is important to us to have this conference, I think, because it does highlight some of the key themes that we have identified at the Diversity Committee, that the members of the diversity team are working so hard to realize. So we are really trying to be creative in different ways and try and overcome barriers to participation in education in particular. So today it was very useful to hear a wide range of perspectives and interventions in our panel discussions, including such activities as Girl Guiding and the Lightyear Foundation, the Northeast Local Enterprise Partnership, and we really enjoyed Graham Price sharing some of the outstanding examples that he could describe to us, so that a whole school can do something to encourage underrepresented groups to blossom in their career. So teachers are crucial to addressing gender inequalities at school. And of course, it was great to hear from Rosamond McNeil on what the National Union of Teachers is up to. And it was extremely interesting to listen to Francesca Borgonovi on her work with OECD on giving us a worldwide view. So I have had the pleasure of working with diversity committee members and the diversity team, many of whom are here today, and I would like to thank them for their presence, for their work. I particularly want to thank all of those who were chairs today: Saiful Islam, Veronica van Heiningen, Bernard Silverman, Jane Clark, Robin Perutz. All of these were chairs, but there were other members of the committee here as well. But really, I want to thank Leslie Miles and Tracy Hughes and Gabriele Budguti for their amazing work that they put in, mostly behind the scenes, preparing, arranging the conference. But last not least, I want to mention Lena Cumberbatch, who has initiated much of the events that we were enjoying today. So I'm just now going to boast a little bit about all the achievements of the diversity team. First of all, we are very pleased that many people, organizations have used the unconscious bias guidance notes that we've produced, and they've watched them on the YouTube video. It's very important to us that this is taken seriously, taken forward, and we are continuing to develop and build on it, keep it at the front of our minds. We're very aware that we cannot just rest now, but we need to refresh and update the guidelines and ideas. Our social media campaign that celebrated Ada Lovelace Day reached 6 million people on Twitter, and it inspired teachers to print out the cards, the social media cards that we produced, and turn them into displays at schools. That really was wonderful to see. And in the last year, we also worked with Historic England. Now, they are the organization that actually put the blue plaques on historic buildings. And what we did with them was celebrating women scientists in history and even living today. So in all, 28 women of science were celebrated where they worked, lived, and buried. So this included the listing of Rosalind Franklin's grave in North London. We also hosted here an event called Out in STEM for LGBT History Month in February, and where we discussed citizenship and law as we marked the 50th anniversary of the partial decriminalisation of male homosexuality in England and Wales. And we were thrilled to have Sir John Dermot Turing, the nephew of Alan Turing, as a keynote speaker. We are currently in the second year of a Destination STEM mentoring scheme pilot for Black Year 12 STEM students, which we run in partnership with the Windsor Fellowship. And I'm very grateful to David Coutinho, I hope I got Kevin, not David, Kevin Coutinho, for having talked to us on the panel about the whole rationale behind it and the preliminary feedback that we already heard about this very inspiring project. It was marvelous to hear from Eugenie Hansiker about the London Mathematical Society's journey. I thought this was really an inspiring example, reminded us that there are examples of good practice in addressing inequalities in our communities and a need for celebration. Now, as Veronica van Heiningen mentioned earlier, I'll just remind you again that nominations for the Athena Prize will open on 30th November, and you will be able to find more information on our website. So it has been an exciting day. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you again, the wonderful team here at the Royal Society. And I hope you will join us again next year. But for now, please join us for a drinks reception in the City of London rooms. Thank you.